I'm Linda van Tilburg for BizNews. Transnet Freight Rail had asked the government to help it remedy chronic copper cable theft that has reduced operation. Copper theft is also contributing to the country's power blackouts. To find out how legislators are dealing with the issue and intended plans to tighten up legislation on scrap metal exports and convictions, we have the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, in the BizNews studio. Hi, Pieter. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Linda, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, Pieter, you sit, apart from that you're the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, you sit on the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee dealing with policing. So what is going on? What is being done by copper theft that is clearly affecting our economy?
There's no doubt about that. Let me start, before I come to the police as such, that the Minister for Trade and Industry, for instance, November last year, actually put a moratorium on the export of copper for 6 months. And in these regulations, it was also clear that all copper transactions must be electronically. It cannot be transactions based on cash. Now that assisted in a certain sense, but the 6 months has now passed.
Yeah.
He did not, yes, it lapsed, and he did not announce a new regulations or an extension of that. So that is on the one hand. When I come to the police, I always say South Africa, in a certain sense, have very good laws. But the problem is the enforcing of those laws when it comes to the police. Let's take copper theft. The estimate we talk about the illegal trade of copper in South Africa is about 47 billion rand annually. So you've mentioned Transnet, that is a problem. And the main issue here is that we must talk about corruption, because the law enforcement people, whether it is the security guards that Transnet, for instance, hire, or whether it is the police services, not all of them, but the corruption is part of the big problem, because you get of those members and they become part of the theft and the corruption. If you go and look at convictions that is taking place, well, to give you a picture, if you take all the crime in South Africa and you take the convictions, we talk of only about 18% of all crime. In fact, that actually means that a criminal has more than an 80% chance to get away with crime in South Africa. The crime situation is really bad in South Africa. And if you ask me, the reason for that is that it actually started in 1999 when the government appointed the National Commissioner that is responsible for the operational issues in the police services, by appointing national commissioners who had no, and I say no, police experience. It started with Jackie Celebi. He was a diplomat. He actually disbanded all the specialized units in the South African police services. That was a big mistake. In the end, he was also found guilty in a court for corruption. Then followed Bakitsele. He became the commissioner, and he was a politician and an MEC for Safety and Security in KZN. He lasted about 2 years. Then he had to leave also because of allegations of corruption. And now he is the Minister for Police. That's ironically. And after him came Ria Payega. She was a social worker. So up to 2017, we had a police commissioner with no police experience. And we are paying a dear price. When it comes to legislation, in the Portfolio Committee, we have, for instance, the Scrap Metal Act, and we are supposed to amend it, and we're still waiting for the amendments on that. And the problem is, you can amend it, but it comes when we go to the scrap dealers, for instance, they just don't comply. As the inspectors or the police who must ensure that they comply are becoming part of syndicates. And if I talk syndicates, I talk about syndicates. I can just mention the other problem is in South Africa, we don't have any copper mine operational at this moment. We had previously had copper mines, but they are trying, and some private companies trying to, can I say, actually trying to get some of the old mines to be more, can I say, profitable in their methods of mining. But it's not that simple. Therefore, we have this dear situation. If I can, and you refer to the economy, I mean, if we look at the Saldanha, they talk about the Saldanha line, and also the Richards Bay line, very important lines on the railroad for the export of coal, specifically when it comes to China. At one stage, those companies exporting had to pay severe penalties because they could not deliver the coal in time and in quantity because of the rails, not only because of copper theft, but even of the rails itself being stolen and taken to scrapyards. So it is really bad as far as that is concerned.
So what you are saying is that even if you tighten up legislation, even if the government comes with new regulation, the problem is that the implementation of this and policing. What about this suggestion that to reintroduce the scorpions?
Well, I'm on record in Parliament. I said it a couple of times. We have, for instance, at this moment, they to call it the Hawks, the Directorate for Priority Crimes. They're doing a good job. But the difference is that when we talk about the previous scorpions, the approach was different because they had prosecutors with the investigators doing a investigation into a specific criminal case, especially when it came to organized crime. And that was very, very successful because your conviction rate was very high, because the prosecutor who was part of the investigation, he or she had all the information and was successful in our courts. With the Hawks, you have no prosecutor with the investigation. And then I come back to corruption, and it sounds a bit negative when I talk about crime in South Africa and all that sort of thing. But I am a politician, and I always say it's no use to be politically correct. We must look at the facts, and then you can deal with it. But for instance, if you go and look specifically at the chain of corruption, and I call it the chain of corruption, you can have a situation where the police do a brilliant job. They actually arrest the people and they have the evidence, but when it comes to the prosecutor, then suddenly certain documents just disappear from the file, or the docket, as they call it. So it is a vicious circle of corruption, not only from, say, one department or one, can I say, section of the criminal justice system. The complete criminal justice system is a problem. I mean, we talk about here the police, the justice and correctional services. I mean, we have situations where you have, for instance, gang leaders and criminals operating from our correctional services. So they are protected by the government. The government and the taxpayers must pay the bill, and they just continue with the criminal activities by means of corruption, smuggling in cell phones, computers, and all that sort of things. So I am very straightforward. South Africa really needs a new minister for police. South Africa needs a new government, because the government, and I mean, if you look at Eskom, for instance, there are allegations that 2 senior ministers are involved in the corruption activities at Eskom. So what can you expect? The only way to save South Africa is to get rid of the ANC government.
Can I quickly return to the Portfolio Committee on Police? The former chairperson, Tina Joemat-Peterson, she has suddenly passed away, and there's a lot of rumors, especially on Twitter, about what happened. Do you care to comment on that?
Well, firstly, it is sad that she passed away. There are many questions, and they don't give the answers. We still don't know what the reason is for her death, and that raises more questions. Yes, the controversy is about the fact that it was alleged that she was organizing some extortion matter with the husband of the public protector, which is now the subject of a Section 194 committee in Parliament, where she can lose her job, like I can put it that way. Her contract ends by the mid of October this year, but the most important thing there is, if she is dismissed by Parliament before the 15th of October, she loses everything, a pension, everything. If she survives after 15 October, then she will get a full pension for the rest of her life. So the stakes are high, and these are the allegations. So the question is quite openly, did she commit suicide, or what is the reason for her death? And I think they're making a mistake to keep it secret. Be open, say yes. I mean, the Hawks are already investigated the matter of the extortion. And I must say that as chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Police, she did a good job. She was really very critical towards the police service. If they did not give proper answers, she sent them back and said, we want the answers in writing. She did not shy away for criticizing the top generals in the police services. She wanted accountability from that. And that, I must say, is a plus for Tina Joemat-Peterson. She also said in the Portfolio Committee that we must remember that the issues we are dealing in police is not about party politics, but it is actually about the interest of all South Africans. Even in Parliament, in her speech, she said there should be more accountability. And even when members of the police service, if they were not well prepared in the Portfolio Committee, she just sent them back and said, you go and prepare yourselves and then you come forward with answers. So in that sense, she was really a good chairperson for the Portfolio Committee in Police. As a person, she always treated me with respect. We had mutual respect for each other. She was a very loyal and dedicated member of the ANC, but she could listen to your views, and you could have differences on a respectful way with Tina Joemat-Peterson. So in that sense, can I say she did a good job as a member of Parliament and as a politician. And unfortunately, we have this controversy about the extortion over her. And it will be very sad, actually, if that was the reason for her death. And if she did commit suicide, because then everybody will know, well, now we want to have the final results from the Hawks on this investigation. Because she also implicated two other members who is also on the committee, on the 194 section committee. So we will have to wait and see what happens.
Dr. Pieter Groenewald, thanks so much for speaking to me.
Thank you, Linda. Always a pleasure.